What's interesting about Sonic 06 is that it has 9 different playable characters with unique abilities, but what if we only used one character throughout the entire game? How would playing through it change, and what obstacles would you run into? Well, that's what I started doing 2 months ago, where I tried to beat Sonic's story with just Shadow. And today I'm here to finish the remaining 3 stories. I do recommend watching that part first, as I explain some techniques and glitches there that I'll be using today. But before we start though, I have to correct some mistakes I made in that video that were pointed out to me by a nice fella in the comments. So huge shout out to Reverie SR for helping me with this video, even though they were busy with school. Way to keep your priorities straight. They make content on speedrunning Sonic 06 and other games, so definitely check them out if you're into that. First of all, you can actually enter Radical Terrain with Shadow. You just have to make sure to buy the bounce bracelet, then clip through the wall here and get to the mirror. I must have not saved after buying it in the last video, because I did buy it. Then we've got Tails Wave Ocean, where I got stuck here, unable to reach this dash ring. But Reverie pointed out to me how you can break these pillars with a homing attack. So I do that and struggle my way onto the debris, and then jump to the dash ring. A little further I run into a big gap that I can just get over using the Gale Spear and the homing attack. But then I run into these enemies, which I can homing attack to. I was feeling nice that day, so I only killed 2 of them, only to be shot in the ass with a rocket. Remember kids, never let assholes live. So killing the 2 rocket guys and then chaos spearing for a bit let me progress. From there I ignored this enemy and used these crates to reach these jits higher up. I killed them all and then started chaos spearing towards this dash ring. But this motherfucker wanted some and started moving towards me. So I eliminated him and homing attacked to the dash ring. I made it to the island housing the goal ring, but of course it was high up. So after committing genocide, I started scaling this rock, which led me all the way to the goal ring. So that leaves us with one more stage that Reverie claimed to be beatable, that being the very first one. Though this one was so insanely difficult, I had to Chaos Spear for 6 minutes straight, multiple times, do really tight platforming, and all of that within a time limit. I think this deserves to be more towards the end of the video, so stay tuned if you want to see if I beat it or not. Let's just start with Shadow's story now. The first stage is White Acropolis, which isn't as wide as usual. Yeah, my totally legit Xbox 360 was glitching out a little, so we're in Black Acropolis today. By the way, if you also have a problem like this, just press F5 to delete Xenia's cache. In the middle of the stage, we usually switch to Rouge, in a section that is very similar to the tail section from the last video. We have to get over these lasers, which is not possible with a normal jump. Luckily there are these rocks though that we can stand on for extra height. Thank you rocks. Then I just homing attack from ledge to ledge until I reach this part. Conveniently there's a searchlight you can climb by continuously attacking it. From there we reach the switch and switch back to Shadow. Before we move on, we gotta make a quick stop at the shop for some upgrades, which I can already imagine will come in handy in some upcoming stages. Rouge's next section is in Kingdom Valley, where she has to collect 3 keys to open this door. As it turns out, Shadow has his own key, the wall clip glitch, which lets us skip the Rouge part completely. Next time we would play as Rouge is inside the volcano in Flame Core, where we have to activate these purple orbs. As Rouge you would climb and glide around and stuff, but Shadow unfortunately doesn't have the necessary skill set. Luckily this volcano has good infrastructure, and there's a path we can basically just follow to the top. From there we jump down to all the orbs and finish the section. Then we get thrown into a full Rouge level, but obviously we're using Shadow. Come on, you should have known that by now. Of course this place is designed around climbing and gliding, but luckily there are still lower pads that Shadow can use. We start with this lily pad that Shadow can bounce off of, but from there we already need to get to a higher platform. Luckily there are some crates that allow us to get high. Not like that. Then we jump around this wall, from where we meet this turtle. We just play the waiting game until we can jump to the next one, and I found out you can attack their heads. Which animal abusing asshole programmed that in? This last turtle leads us to another lily pad, from where we can reach this platform. Of course some wooden crates come in clutch again, allowing us to go up here. I follow the path until I get to this tree, and it was finally time to use the Gale Spear strat, which allowed me to get to this horde of enemies. enemies. After defeating them, I saw the goal ring. But how the hell was I gonna get up there? I saw these platforms on the side. If I could get onto those, I could definitely reach the goal ring. I needed some height to get there though. So I went back and saw that this tree was slanted. So I started spamming Chaos Spear on the incline and was gaining height. Who said Shadow can't climb? As Rouge, you would climb and glide around and stuff, but Shadow unfortunately doesn't have the necessary skill set. Oh yeah, I did. The tree's collision ended pretty early though, and it didn't seem like I had enough height and distance to reach the platform. I knew it was possible though, so I just kept trying, and each time I died I had to do the whole level again because there are no checkpoints. But after a few attempts, I just barely made it. From there I did a little more chaos spearing and reached the goal ring. Damn, what a level. Now that we found Omega, we get to use him for our next task, fighting Mephiles. The second phase of it is usually fought with him, but using Shadow is actually way easier. You can just spam the homing attack and Mephiles doesn't stand a chance. We then meet up with Silver, who would help us in the next stage. But f*** him, we can do this alone. In his section, you're expected to throw objects at these flaming bats, and then glide across. Well, as Shadow we can just homing attack to get across. Then we make it to this moving platform, where you just skip a huge chunk with it, with the height I gained from these enemies. And that ends that section. The next non-Shadow section is where we would use Omega, but there isn't really much in our way. Instead of blasting these enemies with Omega's guns, we use Shadow's homing attacks and just run through the level like normal. We've arrived at the final level and the final non-Shadow section of this story, starting in this room of enemies which we violently kill. Then we would have to shoot these bats and jump on platforms, but we can just homing attack across now. Next we get some platforms that we can easily jump to, which is followed up by this giant vertical room, where we have to kill all the enemies. Luckily there are springs around so we can go up, but they are a little finicky. After using them, I didn't have much air control. I went all the way down to the lowest platform and I couldn't move myself forward enough to reach this leg, so I went to the spring in the middle, which did let me higher up. From there I could use another spring and just barely reach the next legs, from which I continue through these hallways, where there aren't really any obstacles. Eventually we get to this room where we have to get 2 switches, but this was easily resolved by just platforming. And with that, I can confirm that the entirety of Shadow's story is beatable as Shadow, which doesn't sound that impressive actually, but it's because of all of the different characters you usually use, okay? It is impressive. Now we get to the interesting part, Silver's story. A character with such a drastically different moveset compared to the others, with obstacles built around his telekinesis, but we have to get around with Shadow's abilities, starting in Crisis City. We get to this first part, where we can just platform around until we get to this support beam that Silver can usually bend to launch himself. Of course we are unable to do that, but the platforming we did was basically useless, since we can just jump on these crates over here and get to the platform that support beam would have launched us to. Then we have this road that Silver would throw something at to make it usable, but we can get to it by just jumping from these crates and homing attacking the enemy. Right after we run into another Silver exclusive gimmick, raising platforms, but luckily we can stand on this ball and jump from there to reach this tilted building. We walk down it and continue to use our homing attack to cross some gaps, until we reach a gap that's way too big to cross. So I go back to a higher point and spam Chaos Spear until I reach this part, where we immediately run into another raising platforms gimmick, and this time we have to go up really high. To reach the next section, I needed to reach this bridge that sends you into a loading zone. I thought maybe the loading zone extended all the way down, so I just spammed Chaos Spear in that direction, but instead of a loading zone, I reached a dead zone. So then I tried to climb up with the Chaos Spear at different buildings and stuff, but there wasn't any collision with an incline nearby. They all seemed to be at a 90-degree angle. I got desperate and started messing around with some nearby props and hoped that it would somehow launch me up really high, but anytime I got close, Shadow would get kicked off. I did discover car sliding though. I saw these rails in the distance and thought I could possibly reach them, but halfway there I realized that was a little too ambitious. Out of options, I decided to just ask you guys in a community post. Thank you all for the responses, by the way. One person gave this whole list of ideas and I hadn't tried using Chaos Snap yet. Since the higher platform you usually get to has an enemy, maybe the Chaos Snap would send me to him. So I game ended as many enemies as I could and filled up the meter, but it didn't seem to be able to reach that high. So as far as I know, Silver Scries the City isn't possible as Shadow. Not off to a great start for this story, but let's see what's next. A boss where the only way to damage it is by throwing objects at it. I don't see anything I can really do here. I tried attacking the debris, but that just broke it instantly. I can't even get to the boss because there's an invisible wall. I tried clipping through it, but that led me to my death. So yeah, we have to use silver again here. Alright, let's just hope the next stage will give us more luck. You've got to be f***ing with me right now. Unlike Rouge's version, we can bounce on these lily pads. So I tried looking for any slopes around I could climb onto. I even went around this whole corner where I found this tree, but it was blocked off by an invisible wall. There was this enemy that if I could homing attack, I could get higher. But anytime I got close to him, he started shooting me as if we are in America. I don't really see any other options, so I think we'll have to use silver. Again. So I guess Stakes is built for a character with telekinetic abilities are pretty difficult for a character without telekinetic abilities. So let's just play a play stage now. But she can double jump, which you are expected to do in some parts of the stage, like at this legs. But Kraid's help us solve that issue pretty quickly. And then there are these spikes that I was able to slide under like a cool dude. So this stage is fully beatable. Next up we got our first mission, which isn't just beatable, it's so much easier. Silver's only way of attacking is throwing objects, which makes killing enemies a chore. And they say gaming isn't a real job. Try this shit for once. So using Shadow we can kill all these shits much quicker. But then we get to the most infamous level, Dusty Desert. We start with another gang of enemies we can kill with ease. But then a bunch of balls roll in, which Silver usually knocks into these holes. But apparently he is fucking weak because holy shit, look at that power. So homing attacking certainly works on these balls and we can pass this section with ease. The next room just has us platforming over some sand waves. And parts that Silver would usually glide over we can homing attack over. Then we get to Amy's section, which is actually so much easier as well. Shadow is just so much more agile than Amy, which makes it a lot more fun to play. Though I had to lock in again, because in this room I had to hit a pretty high up switch to open the door. Just kidding, I didn't have to, because I could use Shadow's wall clip to get through this door. But in the following area we were expected to get up pretty high again. Luckily there was this pillar sticking out and I could jump onto it. Now it's time for Silver again, where we run into another door that he'd have to open with telekinesis. But doors are no match for Shadow's wall clip. Oh, apparently they are. I tried clipping through the walls on the side, but they didn't seem to work either. But then I had a genius idea of running before performing the glitch, which actually worked somehow. Full of excitement I proceeded into another enemy room, and then into another platforming room with sand waves. This time they expected you to use Silver's telekinesis, but instead of doing anything complicated, I just jumped over all the sand waves. We run into another door that I clipped through again, and after another enemy room, we reach the infamous ball puzzle. And holy shit, look at it go! We can finally get revenge on the stupid ball for making everyone's life so miserable. This doesn't make it easier though, as Shadow hits this ball so hard it knocks over the crates that are supposed to stop it. But then I figured out you can use the Chaos Spear to hit it less hard. After that it was pretty easy, and we got into the right hole. Turns out Shadow is better at playing with balls than Silver. Then we get to fight Sonic as Shadow, and it's really easy. I just spammed the homing attack until he died. Arriving back at the hub, we're tasked to run some errands. This would unlock Silver's shockwave ability, which would let us flip all 4 of these switches at the same time. And this is required to deactivate these lasers blocking the next level. So I tried the wall clip glitch on the lasers, which was really difficult because they really liked seeing me die. But then I remembered from the last episode we could glitch through the building behind us. From there I could walk along this out of bounds section and skip these lasers. The stage would usually start with a play section, and there's nothing in our way there. The issues arise when we reach Silver's part, because they expect us to glide after the spring. But Shadow becomes paralyzed once we use it. Like we can't use any of of his moves only barely move in any direction, so I use this rock instead to jump and homing attack from. Like last time, we use the searchlight to gain height, as the springs make us basically useless. We do that once more to get to these lasers, and then reach the large area where we can just simply walk to the finish line. After that, Eggman tries to put a stop to our challenge with a boss that you usually defeat by throwing objects at it. What a dick move. Luckily we can homing attack his arms to do damage, making the boss beatable. Our next mission would be to hammer some enemies with Amy, but that shit, because Shadow is up in this crib. Then we would have to buy a move for Silver, which helps him sneak into the train station, but simply buying it activates the mission and I was able to get past these guards and into Radical Terrain. This one was actually really interesting because it played with weight. Usually Silver would pick up this crate to make the platforms balance each other out, but for some reason there's a switch that destroys the crate briefly, giving us enough time to reach the next platform. A little further we run into the spring problem again, so we have to find another way up here. Jumping from this elevated ledge didn't get me high enough either, so I jumped from the ledge to the side here and spammed the Chaos Spear for a bit, which actually let me reach the spring. From there I got onto the edge and could reach the next platform, but that was immediately followed up by another weight puzzle. I tried kicking this crate onto the platform and it actually worked. A little further were some more platforms with crates on them, but this time I just had to kick them off. There was only one obstacle left stopping us, these fences. Silver throws objects at it, but we can just use our raw body power. Beatable. Out of nowhere a clone of me shows up, so my first reaction was to beat him to death, which let us progress. We enter Aquatic base, where the first thing I do is jump down. Then I kill all these assholes and get to a part where we would usually switch to Shadow. And that's exactly what happens here too. Remember, this is a Shadow only challenge. After that part we run into some issues. We can homing attack to this platform, but the spring is locked in this cage that we would open with telekinesis. But f*** the developers, because this cage actually gives us enough height to reach the next platform. Then I run into these lasers which also require telekinesis. Jesus, how is the average motherfucker supposed to get around this place? I try my trusty wall clip around these lasers, but that doesn't really work. There's a little gap which lets me get under the lasers, but I can't do shit from there. Then I remembered there was a third platform, from which I might be able to get over the lasers. Only getting there was an issue. But there are some crates here. Only this annoying dildo destroys them all the time. But sometimes he does leave one. So I Chaos Spear him to shut him up and jump from the crate. And yes, Chaos Spearing from the third platform got me over the lasers. I continued through the level, homing attacking some balls and reached this door. I decided to just wall clip with a running start and it worked. After playing with this giant ball and eliminating some lizards, I reached another door. Of course I tried a wall clip, but this one took a couple tries. And when I finally made it, I fell straight into the void. So I tried again and again, starting to think this may be the end. But then I was able to stop myself from falling for a bit, which led me to keep trying again and again, and I got so frustrated I decided to take a break. And when I came back and did the glitch, I somehow got stuck inside of the door and then made it to the other side. But I couldn't see shit. I just jumped forward from the middle because I knew a big ball was there. So I continue on this ball until I reach another door, but I dealt with it quickly this time. He doesn't even know what hit him because he's a door and he doesn't have the ability to know anything. Then I just killed a few more guys and made it to the end. Before we can even breathe in a Yocto liter of oxygen, we are tasked to escort this woman and kill some enemies. These ones above water were a little scary, but I could just homing attack back to the land. Damn, this guy got a little too excited. Then I had to do the 3 trials of bullshit. 2 of them I just had to kill enemies and the other one was a quiz. We enter Kingdom Valley and beat up this Mandem. Right after we run into another telekinesis thing that would lift up these stairs. But that's the pushy route. We can just walk along the edge here. Then we're stopped by some metal bars. I tried to wall clip like 100 times, but it didn't feel like working today. So I saw this door and realized I had to go around the tower. For some reason I could homing attack the metal bars to gain height. I went to this pendulum, which I could homing attack to gain height as well. Silver would usually swing these to demolish this tower, but Shadow is unable to do that. But what he can do is destroy destroy it with his raw body strength. Though I didn't even have to go through all that stuff. I could have just gone up right here. We immediately body slam another tower and run into another set of bars. I'm able to clip through the wall to the right of them. Then I find a circle of rings and lightspeed dash on accident, which makes this happen. A little further are these platforms that fall down once I attack an enemy. When that happens, I can only go to these ruins with a spring. That just sends me to my death. So I decide to let these enemies live and just go to this platform on the left here. I reach another tower begging to be destroyed by me. Another set of stairs that isn't there, and some more bars I can't click through. So I just use it to gain height and get around this building with the Gale Spear. Whereafter I run into this spike bar that is literally just there to troll you. He tracks your movement for some reason. What an asshole. Proceeding, the game wanted me to lift this crate, but I just go back upstairs and spam Gale Spear. From there it was pretty straightforward, until this Sonic section, which was literally straightforward. Back to silver, I mean black silver, we have another set of telekinetic stairs. But I just jump down and homing attack to the next platform. Following that up is jumping from pendulum to pendulum, which I failed a bunch of times because I tried to be cool and use the lightspeed dash. Right after, another group of towers were asking me to destroy them, so I delivered. But I made sure to get these assholes that were shooting me and getting in my way. Then I just grab this eagle, kill some dickwads, and end the level. We instantly get spit into the final stage of Silver Story, starting in this huge platforming section. I didn't feel like doing that though, so I just ran through the lava. So if lava won't stop us, maybe a horde of enemies will? No, of course not. But what about a door that requires telekinesis to open? Yeah, that will work. You already know I tried to wall clip on it, but it's just too solid for that to work. So maybe clipping somewhere in the area? Nope. So I decided to just spear glide to the right of this mountain, which led me to find a little crack in the collision. Inside the mountain I could see the next part of the stage, but I didn't have enough height to make it there. So I died and I had to come up with a way to gain height. So I found this giant spike, and spikes are slanted, which means I could climb it with a Gale Spear. This let me get high enough to go through that crack in the collision again, and then progress to the next part of the stage. But after some platforming, I got surprised by the exact same section again, with the door and all. For good measure I tried to clip through it again, but of course it didn't work. But when I tried to go back, my camera glitched and I fell into the void. And I was sent back all the way to the start of the whole stage. I made the executive decision to Alt F4 and try again the next day. So this time I made sure to get a checkpoint before reaching the next arena section, where I started climbing a similar spike to the last one and found my way around the mountain. I went into it again and saw I had more than enough height anyways, so I wasted another 5 minutes. Yay! I reached the next section. Ow! Yeah, this lava damages you, which made me lose all my rings, so I had to be careful. Fuck! So I tried again, and this time I avoided the lava wall and came in on the right and made it to the nearest platform. I could easily find my way to the volcano. Once inside I was met with another telekinetic door, which of course I couldn't clip through. Trust me, I tried this for a while, and there wasn't much to work with in this room. I tried stuff with these crates, which was a waste of my time, so I'm kind of out of options here. Unfortunately, we'll have to use silver, and I don't have much hope for the final encounter. You literally have to throw objects at it and use telekinesis. How are we possibly going to ever beat him? No way. You can just homing attack him to death? Well, that was easy. So in all Silver Story, we only had to use him 4 times, which is a pretty good result in my opinion. But we're not done yet. Let's see how we fare in the last episode. Since we killed Sonic before, we have to collect some nice decorative gems for his grave. His friends would usually do this, but they all decided to take the day off, so Shadow has to do all the work. First up is the tail section, which immediately says fuck you and have fun crossing this big gap. There's a dash ring in the middle, but that doesn't send us far enough, so I go up to the highest point and Gale Spear to the other side. It didn't seem like I could make it, but the chunk missing from the building that some big hungry fella must have eaten left us with a climbable slope. I went as high as I could and homing attacked onto the eggs. From there I continued the same way as I did all the way back at the start of Silver Story. Then I just walked until I got into this building where I had to cross a big gap and another big gap right after to reach the first Gale's Emerald. The second emerald we would get with Omega, who is usually able to glide slide. That would be an issue, but there are enemies all over the place we can homing attack to. After this first lava pool is a giant arena with a ton of enemies, but I just waited for them to get sucked onto these black holes that spawn throughout the stage. Then there is a pool of lava, which we can easily cross, and after taking an elevator, we reach the emerald. Onto the knuckle section, where instead of gliding we can just jump from platform to platform, until this black hole gets in the way. So I go around the left of this pillar, and after dealing with one more black hole that really wanted to suck me, I reach the emerald. The fourth one we would get with Silver, who is also able to glide. Luckily we have one big gap to cross, which I'm able to do with just a jump, a couple chaos spears and a homing attack. From there the level is actually way easier than with Silver, since Shadow goes so fast the black holes don't even have time to spawn. So far this has been easy. Is the game really going to let me off without any issues? Spoiler alert, the next section is fucking hard. As you can see, we're dealing with some very small wooden platforms, but that's okay, I'm skilled enough to jump to them. But the second one already required a bit more than just a jump, so I chaos spear, but all of a sudden a crate gets thrown at me. Yeah, there aren't just black holes that suck you in, but also inverse red holes that spit out crates. Luckily I can just barely make it by jumping, chaos spearing until the red hole spawns, and then homing attacking. The next platform to my right I could just jump and homing attack to as well. The same goes for the next platform as well, but from there I had no clue what to do. I could see the next platform, but there was a giant black hole in front of it, and meanwhile a bunch of red holes were throwing crates at me. Whenever I tried to do anything at all, they decided it was time for me to die. Eventually I realized they despawn after waiting a while, but even then I didn't see any way to get to the other side. I decided to just chaos spear around the black hole, which I was able to do, but I was way too low to ever reach the next platform. And there was another black hole, but I just decided to continue. To absolutely no one's surprise, I started getting sucked in, but then I realized this was actually exactly what I needed. Being sucked in gave me extra height, and I was able to homing attack out of it, reaching the next platform. Then I could just homing attack to the next one, where some explosive crates wanted to do a little trolling. So I wait to get hit and proceed to this island, where I kill all the enemies so they don't do any funny business. The next platform looked really far away, so I decided to release my inner monkey and climb this tree. And I know that might sound racist considering Shadow is black, but that was not my intention. With my extra height I was able to chaos spear pretty far, but I still wasn't high enough. Luckily there was one saving grace, this capsule. Let's all take a moment to appreciate the existence of this capsule. So I homing attack to it and then to this enemy, after which I get bombarded by crates. I just waited it out and safely traveled to this island housing a switch to turn off all the black holes. I tried reaching it, but of course a black hole started sucking me in. But I timed my homing attack just right and finally turned off all the black holes. This let me peacefully jump to the next platforms, from where I could see what I presumed to be the end. I started chaos spearing around this dick-shaped rock, and sure enough, the emerald was there. But the level had one more trick up its sleeve, these black holes. And one actually started sucking me in, but I could escape from it and homing attack to the emerald. I still can't believe this section is possible. There were so many jumps I could barely make. I had to rely on black holes and capsules, and all the while crates were being thrown at me and I was being sucked in by black holes left and right. It took me 5 hours to beat this thing, which would have been a very unpleasant experience if I didn't have the Starfall podcast to keep me company.
I saw they like put strip clubs in Fortnite and shit, like what the fuck?
Okay, enough glazing. Let's move on to Amy's section. Wait, this is fucking easy. Okay, so I break this rock, find a spring, jump onto some steep ledges, walk for a bit, climb the slide, break it, and then reach the emerald. Yeah, quite a downgrade from what we just had. We've got one more challenge to face though. Shadow section. Oh wait, we are Shadow. So yeah, the end of the world is actually fully beatable as Shadow. So that leaves us with one more obstacle. Solaris, who in order to be defeated requires us to use the right character, which at first is Silver. I tried all of Shadow's moves. Chaos Spear, charging the Chaos Spear. Well, that's all he can do basically. So no, we cannot beat Solaris with just Shadow. So yeah, this is a bit of an anticlimactic ending, but we've actually got one more stage to tackle, Wave Ocean. As I mentioned earlier, I wanted to leave this stage for the end because of how insane it was. In the previous episode, I already got stuck at the loop thinking there was nothing I could do, but the speedrunner I mentioned earlier, Reverie, found a way to actually get out of it. In the first few milliseconds of the stage you can actually move, so by holding right you can run past all the dash pads on the loop, losing you speed. This allows us to jump out of the loop, from where we have to backtrack. We can either jump to the other side of the loop and jump over all the dash panels, or we can just get to the very edge and run to the top. Back at the start we can jump on top of the loop and make it to this rock. From there I start chaos spearing to this bridge, even though the rock on the right is closer. That's because that route skips a checkpoint and I'm a pussy and was too afraid to die. Thereafter I jumped over these dash panels, making it to another loop. If I don't skip them, I land in the water, and as we already know, Shadow is allergic to H2O. So I chaos spear to this next loop, which you can probably run around and then just jump over the water, but that was really finicky, so I just climbed the edge of this loop instead, and then jumped to the bridge. But one time I got launched all the way to the bridge somehow, so that's also an option I guess. From that point we're finally free from the water for a bit, and can just continue as Sonic would, until this part, and this is where we get hard. First of all we have to get to that bridge, which Reverie said would take a minute and a half, but no, it takes 6 fucking minutes. Well, that would be okay on its own, but after we land on that bridge and do this whole whale chase, we get to the tail section. We immediately run into another gap, but we can cross it with a chaos spear. But then we get to this dash ring you can't just jump to, and this was the first time I died. The first of many, meaning I had to do the 6 minutes of spearing again and again and again. Eventually I figured out the best strategy was to jump onto these crates, then to this arch, and then to the dash ring. But the next part was also far away, so I chaos speared and boom, an enemy shoots me with a rocket. Another 6 minutes of spearing, so I kill the enemies and continue from there. But then I find out I can just homing attack to the next part. Yeah, the whale Sonic, I mean the other Shadow is attached to, destroys part of this bridge, but being fast enough makes it possible to get over there before that happens. But then we get to this island, and I had no clue what the fuck to do. Well, no worries, I just had to get up that big rock and hit a switch. Okay, let me just think and maybe get up here. Wait, there's a fucking time limit? Yeah, as if this section wasn't hard enough. We have to do it all before the whale reaches the gate. I was willing to experiment, but each time I wanted to get to this island, I had to do 6 minutes of chaos spearing, followed by 2 more minutes of platforming. First I tried chaos spearing from the spring, I ran out of time. I tried climbing this rock on the side and getting to this bar, but it wasn't functional. I tried just scaling the big rock, but I ran out of time. I counted, and I did all of this 30 times, which is 3 hours of chaos spearing towards this one stupid bridge. I was ready to give up, declaring this level wasn't possible. But then Reverie came in clutch, accidentally finding the solution. It was that fucking simple the whole time? Jesus. I finally hit that switch and closed the gate, letting me progress to the max speed section, which was just a nice and calm walk without anything stopping us. Yes, thanks to the help of Reverie, I can declare Sonic's Wave Ocean is indeed beatable as Shadow. Making this video, I realized I don't have a life. Most of my childhood was spent playing Sonic games and learning about Sonic through YouTube videos. So please subscribe to motivate me to spend more time on Sonic during my adulthood. Okay, despite my anger, I still really enjoyed doing this video. The really difficult and painful sections are just part of a challenge like this. Oh yeah, you probably want to hear the results. We only had to use a character other than Shadow 7 times across about 40 levels and boss fights. I'm pretty happy with that result. Though if any of you in the comments have any more ideas on how to beat these levels I couldn't, let me know and I'll make a part 3 to correct myself. Thanks for watching.